Everything you desire is waiting for you to claim it. There's no creating involved, only invention through imagination and building through action. You are at the center of all your desires, dreams, and achievements. Welcome to Designing Your Life Today, the podcast that's all about your success, achieving your goals, building wealth through your business, and building your most passionate, powerful, magnificent life. Discover ways to use your purpose to connect you to serving others and living your dreams. I am Pat Council, and I know you are built by design to win. And it all begins with knowing how to tap into your success energy. Let's get on the path of discovery, decisive action, development, and unwavering dedication to your life's calling. It's time to embark on a transformative journey where your deepest passions become your most rewarding achievements. Embrace your power to shape your destiny, because this is your moment to do life with power. Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and on Designing Your Life Today, I want to talk about reclaiming and living your purpose. First of all, if you feel like you're out of sorts, you're not sure what to do with your life, I think this podcast might give you some hope. With that being said, when we talk about reclaiming and living our purpose, we have been taught kind of the opposite in life. We've been taught to grow up, go to school, or go to college, or get a trade so that we can make a living. And a lot of people are doing just that, which explains why a lot of people complain about their jobs, about having to go to work, about the people that they work with. Well, when you step into your purpose, let me give you my caveat, that does not mean you won't end up working with or connecting with someone that you would prefer not to deal with. However, it does mean that it will be a lot more pleasant. In other words, you're doing something that you love. So it becomes easier to overlook that person, or it becomes easier for you to deal with that situation by having a friendly conversation or a productive conversation with that person. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about reclaiming and living your purpose, because I think with all the chaos that we have today, and I've seen it kind of progressively grow. And the thing about that is it's because people are not satisfied. They're not happy. They're looking for what can they do with their lives. And as a result, they end up doing things that are counterproductive. Not only that, because we're taught probably, I can't speak for everyone, but I would say that a lot of people are taught to live from a position of survival mode, which means when you live from a position of survival mode, you will settle for anything. You will do almost anything, such as people who get paid to start riots, people who get paid to protest, whether they believe in what they're protesting for or not. And it creates a lot of strife. So the thing is, when you make a decision that, you know what, my life may not be where I want it to be, but I'm going to put my attention on following through on my purpose, you're going to find that a lot of things in your life will change. There's going to be this great shift in your thinking, in your behavior, in your life overall, once you decide that you're going to follow through and live your purpose. So perhaps it is time to reclaim your purpose. So why are we reclaiming it? You reclaim your purpose because if you have farmed out your life to everyone and everything, to include perhaps a job that you don't like, it doesn't mean you can't work a job. So I'm saying a job that you don't like, dealing with different situations that demean you, then it's time that you reclaim your purpose. When you reclaim your purpose, a lot of that will go away. And while you will always have challenges, I think we always will, I think that's a part of the growth process. And while those challenges will pop up, because you've stepped into your purpose, you will recognize that these obstacles are merely challenges designed to make you stronger and challenges that will help you to overcome some things. So why do I think that we all have a purpose? Well, the Bible teaches us that God created us. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. So we each have our own unique design, and we have different gifts and talents. If you think about it, there are some people that can actually sing, which I believe that's something you have to be born with. There's some people that can dance. There are some people who are extremely intelligent or smart when it comes to book knowledge, and they learn extremely fast. And then there's so many other gifts. I mean, wisdom, which is to me, a spiritual gift. So to kind of sharpen this a little bit more, why do I think that we each have a purpose? And you guys know I take my cues from the Bible. I've learned to do that because I find that human input that's outside of any type of spirituality that's connected to God, I find that it's nothing more than a personal opinion. And sometimes that opinion is correct and sometimes it's not. So with that being said, the reason why I believe you have a special purpose is because in Ephesians 2:10, the Bible says that you're God's workmanship, created to do good works. And he planned this in advance. So this has been planned. You have been predestined to succeed in a specific area, in using your specific purpose. Now, whether you succeed or not, that's a different story. Sometimes we don't succeed because we're looking at other people and wanting to have what they have and be who they are, when in fact it's not attached to our calling. So pay attention to what your purpose is. With that being said, I'm going to give you 5 pieces of insight that I believe will help you when it comes to reclaiming and living your purpose. So first of all, identify what you've learned along the way in your life. If you're not operating in your purpose today, identify what you've learned from your mistakes. And why am I saying mistakes? Because you've made a lot of mistakes as a result of going in a direction that you were not designed to go towards. So think about that. And this isn't about you beating yourself up. This isn't about you judging yourself so harshly to the point where you don't get anything done, or you think it's too late for you, or you think, wow, I've made so many mistakes, I couldn't possibly step into this purpose. Understand this. You need to follow the purpose that God gives you or gave you. And you don't have to listen to man and his criticisms, mankind and their criticism. They're going to judge you. People will judge you. People will criticize you. And in this day and time, thanks to social media, criticisms and judgments and unsolicited opinions are at an all-time high. So understand this. It is important that you dismiss all of that, ignore all of that, and identify what you've learned from your mistakes. Why are you looking at what you've learned from your mistakes? Because you're going to be able to refine and sharpen your purpose. Your purpose is the opposite, perhaps, of the direction that the mistakes took you. So pay attention to those mistakes and look at it. There have been mistakes that I've made in my life, and those mistakes were made as a result of going against the grain of being the person I was called to be. And unfortunately for us as human beings, it's unfortunate and fortunate that we have to learn some things, and sometimes we have to learn them the hard way, and that's okay. And when I say the hard way, it's not because we're being rebellious. Sometimes there's some rebellion there, but also we have to learn these things because we were never taught. We're never taught what to look for, what to expect, what to beware of. Okay, so with that being said, that's why I say it's not about you beating yourself up. It's about you identifying what you've learned from your mistakes and begin to lay the foundation for your purpose, which, by the way, our Summer Success Series is coming up. It's going to start July 20th, but we have like a bonus week that starts July 13th that allows you to download some great information and other things that will help you. You can go ahead and register for our Summer Success Series by going to designinyourlifetoday.com success series. And right there on that very simple landing page, you can put your information in. The Summer Success Series is a 6-week long program. You can participate in the program based on your time. It's going to be virtual. And don't you think it's time to spend like a summer of just becoming that person you desire to be? We're going to provide information that will help you boost and build your momentum, strengthen your identity, and accelerate your goal achievement. So with that being said, go to designinyourlifetoday.com/success series. So once you've identified these mistakes and you are now willing to reclaim or even embrace your purpose, I think you will get a lot of benefit from our Summer Success Series. So let's move on to number 2. When it comes to reclaiming and living your purpose, it is important that you dismiss the negative things you've been taught about yourself. It is very difficult for you, first of all, to even claim your purpose if you are focused on some stereotype that someone else created for you. And that stereotype can come from society. It can come from actually family members. It can come from just friends and things that you've bought into because of what's called groupthink. In other words, if the rest of the group is like this, I must be like that too. People fail to realize that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So what does that mean? That means you're an individual. And if you're just because you're the same color or the same gender, that does not mean that you think the same or you behave the same. And don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're the same gender as a female, yeah, you've got, biologically speaking, a female way of behaving. Okay. Your body's going to behave in a certain way, but we're talking about your purpose and what you're called to do. That's an individual thing. There could be 1,000 singers, but when you listen to those singers, if they're popular and you've heard their songs before, you can close your eyes and identify each and every single singer. Whose voice is that? That's proof that we're individuals. Doesn't matter. And they can all be the same color. Doesn't matter. They can all be the same gender. Doesn't matter. They are individuals. So it is important that you dismiss the negative things you've been taught about yourself. Discover who you are, embrace it. Don't think you're being arrogant. Don't think you're being narcissist, which that's the buzzword that seems to be kind of permeating through society, where everybody who comes across as confident is a narcissist. Listen, there's a difference between a confident person and a narcissistic person. A narcissist, they're very dangerous. And you can actually look up the definition on the internet. So we're not going to spend our podcast time going over the difference. As a matter of fact, I did a podcast that explained what you must know about the difference between narcissism and confidence, because it is important that you don't shy away from who you're called to be and that you recognize that we're made in God's image. And I can assure you, God's not walking around pretending that he's less than. He never did. And so he says that we are made in his image. So he had a plan for us to be fruitful and multiply. How can you be fruitful and multiply if you lack confidence? And I know a lot of people think that being fruitful is all about having lots of children. That's a very small part of it. Okay, so when we talk about, or multiplying rather, so when we talk about being fruitful and multiplying, this is not just about having babies. This is about you using your imagination and becoming the most creative person you can be and aligning it with your purpose and bringing something amazing that will help to make our world better. that will help to make other people's lives better. There's nothing narcissistic about that. This is not spending time pretending that you're less than and looking at someone who's thriving and you're actually jealous of that person. So think about these kinds of things, and I will post that episode in the show notes, and you guys can listen to it, because I think it's important that we stop playing small. We have a lot of angry people today. Why? Because they are operating counter to who and what God made them to be. All right, let's move on to number 3. Discover and name your true purpose. Okay, your purpose is not just to take a job for the sake of a dollar. Now, there have been some times in our country's history where people had to take a job because they were prohibited from getting the jobs that actually they were either qualified for or the jobs that they were excited about having. The other side to that coin is, which is the beautiful part about being an entrepreneur, but the other side to that coin is people who stepped into their purpose and recognize that it is God who gives the power to give wealth. Those people thrive no matter what was going on in any time in history. Madam C.J. Walker is such a good example of that. And I like to use that example because of the fact that she became the first female millionaire. Okay, so and so the point is, as a Black woman, she didn't allow that to stop her from winning. She didn't allow that to stop her from bringing her products to the market. Okay, and this was in the 1900s, like 1905 or something, somewhere around that time. I did look it up, and I think I saw 1905 or somewhere in between that time. So think about this. There's nothing that can stop you from carrying out your purpose, especially now, because we have so many resources that were not available during that time. So discover and name your true purpose. Don't just take a job because you need to make money. Understand this. If you take a job just because you need to make money, then take that job and make that money and use that money to further your purpose, to bring your purpose to life. So discover and name your purpose. What is your purpose? Put a name to it. Why are you here? And you want to think about that. You know, are you called to teach? And we're not just talking about teaching children. We're not just talking about being a college professor, although you could be called to do that. We're talking about in my case, I am a life coach and a business coach, and I work with people to actually discover their purpose and to really tap into their true identity and to step up and step out and start doing life with power. Doing life with power would include, achieving the best life possible. And we go through the obstacles and other types of things to help them get that clarity that they need, but not just clarity, but also to strengthen their confidence so that they can turn into this person who is fulfilled and a person that when they look in the mirror, they're excited about that person. So that's a kind of that requires a lot of teaching. Okay. And we work together to make it happen. So figure out what is your purpose. Put a name to it. And let's move on. All right. To number 4. Commit and recommit to your purpose. So in other words, commit. If you know what your purpose is, then commit to that purpose. This is how you're going to live your best life. When we hear the scripture, and I've used it several times on this podcast, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Now, his righteousness means his way of doing things, the right way to do things, to do it how God would call you to do it. How can you do what God called you to do if you're operating outside of your purpose? So right then and there, the path that you're on is taking you down the road of unfulfillment. I've met so many people along the way throughout my life that are doing things that they would rather not do. And they want to complain about it, or they want to try and put their true purpose on display. Like there was a gentleman, he could really sing, but he was a cook. And in his mind, he didn't have enough confidence to step up and step out and use his talents. And as a result, he settled for a cook. He settled for making far less money than he would have made had he used his talent. And he was not a satisfied person. He didn't build anything, let's say that could be considered strong. Okay, in other words, he never settled down. He went from woman to woman to woman because he wasn't happy with his own life. He wasn't satisfied, and he was looking for that kind of, I guess, superficial feel-good moment. So it is important that you commit or recommit to your purpose. Know what that purpose is. Don't be shy about stepping up and stepping out. See, a lot of times people don't want to commit to a purpose because they recognize that they're going to have to do the work, and it's not about doing the work because they probably already have some type of job, but it's about doing the kind of work where they will encounter obstacles and they feel like they won't be able to overcome those obstacles or get beyond those obstacles. And they feel like if I do this and I step out and do the thing I was really called to do and it doesn't work out, then they feel like a failure, and then they'll really be miserable. They feel like their lives will really be unhappy. So they would prefer the level of unhappiness that they're living at which they're living on now. So the thing about that is you have to risk it. And this is where your faith comes in. And I can promise you, you're going to run into some challenges. You're going to have things happen that will send you in a direction that you never thought you would go. But at the end of the day, if you're committed to that purpose, even if you're going in a direction that you didn't think you would go, you're going to make the adjustment, and you'll make it quickly because you'll recognize this is not my purpose. This is taking me farther away from what I was called to do. And this is taking me farther away from the outcome that I was looking for as it relates to my life. These are things that it would be so great if parents would teach their children. These are things that I was not taught when I was growing up, not because I didn't have a great family, but because they probably didn't know anything about all of this. So the thing about that is, in this day and time, I think if parents were to understand that it's not all about sending your kids to college so that they can say, oh, I have a degree. It's not just about that. And yes, I do have my college degree. However, it's not just about that, you guys. It is about, if you want to go get your college degree, get it. Because I do believe that going to college and getting around other people, I do think it broadens your horizon. However, with all the indoctrination that's going on in colleges today, not so sure it's a great place to be. But that's another story for another time. So the point that I'm making is, even if you get a college degree, it is important that you know what your purpose is. Know what that purpose is. You might need a college degree to fulfill that purpose. But when you know what your purpose is, you are going to be on task. You're going to be excited about your life every day. And even on those days when nothing seems to work out, because you've committed to your purpose, when you go to sleep and wake up the next day, there's something in you that's still excited about getting up and getting out there and meeting those challenges head on. And so think about these kinds of things. And no matter what comes at you in your life, when you are committed to following through on your purpose, that means your faith is at an all-time high. So you're going to be able to overcome these obstacles or anyone that comes against you because they're either jealous or rude, or they don't want to help you, or by design or assignment, they want to stop you. So think about that. Okay, so let's finish up. The final one is decide you're going to follow through on your purpose unapologetically. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your life. You don't owe anyone an explanation for following through on your purpose. You know what? I've heard of people say that I've met throughout my life who, even in business, and they're running a certain business, or they are in a certain job, and say, well, this is what my dad did, and I wanted to be like my dad. Okay, love your father, respect your father, admire your father, but be what God called you to be. If he called you to do what your dad was doing, then by all means, jump in there. If he called you to do something different, then have the courage to honor your creator. You see, it's God first, then family, then your career. So the point that I'm making here is, just because someone in your family wants you to do something, that doesn't mean you're dishonoring them or that you don't love them. If you step into your purpose, you're going to go a lot farther. You're going to be a lot happier. You're going to be fulfilled. And I've got to say this, and then we're going to wrap up. I always find it to be interesting that particular parent, they did what they were called to do. They did what they wanted to do. They had a fulfilling life. And then they think it's okay to try and brainwash their kids into being just like them. As a result, you know what happens? They get this adult who's, they can't understand why this adult does a lot of these deviant types of things. They can't understand why this adult is, even though they're doing what they were called, what their parent asked them to do, and they may be successful at it, but they're an undercover alcoholic or functional alcoholic. I think that's what they're called. Or but they're sabotaging themselves in some way. Okay, usually it's physically. Okay, and so or emotionally. So the point that I'm making is, decide that you are going to follow through in your purpose. And you don't have to apologize to anyone. You don't have to apologize to your parents. You don't have to apologize to any family member. You don't have to be guilted into doing things that you were not called to do. Whatever put downs or whatever things that people say about you when you're not around, that's okay. It's because they're saying it behind your back. And guess what? That's where it's supposed to stay. And you don't just choose, align with God, ask God, why are you here? And you know what? I would say journal, listen and journal, get quiet, ask, listen, journal. And you may have to do it more than once. It may not come in that day. I would say sometimes you may need to go on a fast. Okay, fast and pray and listen and journal and just keep doing it until that purpose comes out. You say, well, why do I have to do that? If it's my purpose, shouldn't I know? Well, here's the thing. If you have been living in a way that's counterproductive to who you were called to be, and you've been doing that for a long, long, long time, okay, your brain has adjusted. I'm going to say your mind has said, all right, let's just settle. Let's just accept this. Okay. And the minute you try to deviate and go towards something that's going to take you to where you feel like you're called to be, inner critic screams loudly and you shrink back down. So the point that I'm making, sometimes we have to clear out the cobwebs. So the fasting, the praying, the listening, the journaling, it may take you a minute. And plus, this is a great way for you to build that strength that you need, that spiritual strength, that emotional strength, that mental strength that you need, and even your physical strength that you need to get all these power cores are now operating fully. So think about this, you guys, when it comes to you stepping up. This is what I call doing life with power. And then you're going to accept the fact that you are built by design to win, because you know that you've been given a purpose. Now, I gave the scripture Ephesians 2:10. So I want to encourage you to go and look it up yourself, and you can read it yourself and you can see. And there's so many other examples in the Bible of people who had purposes, and when they carried those purposes out, we're still reading about them today and we're learning about their wisdom. But guess what? Every single one of them, you're not just learning about their wisdom, you're also seeing the challenges that they went through, the mistakes that they made, and how they identified the mistakes or the lessons that they learned after they made the mistake. So this isn't about you shrinking. This is about you growing. We're in the second half of the year. And so in order for you to achieve whatever goals that you set, recognize that those goals are aligned with something that's going to take you somewhere. The object of the game is for you to know, what are you aligned with? And are you even aligned with the goals that you set? Or are you just, you created a wish list? So that's what our Summer Success Series is all about. So we're going to learn a lot about who we are, and we're going to strengthen our identity. We're going to step up and learn to accelerate our goal achievement. You're going to boost and build that momentum. And that does not mean you won't have challenges, but what you will have is a strong foundation, and you're going to remember and be excited about who you are. And as a result, you're going to overcome, and you're going to keep going, and you're going to get the kind of results that will make you smile, where you can look in the mirror and look at yourself and go, wow, you are phenomenal. And it's okay to call yourself phenomenal. That doesn't make you a narcissist. That means that you are embracing who God made you to be, while recognizing that, wait a minute, God created me and I'm made in his image. To me, that's honoring God. Okay. To do anything that's counterproductive, that affects you emotionally and mentally and physically, I think that does not honor who you were designed to be. So with that being said, go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series. Get on our list so we can start sending you out the information that you need as we get closer to our Summer Success Series launch. It's actually going to fully launch July 20th. It's going to be 6 weeks of, I'm going to say, excitement and fun and learning and building and growing and connection to the right community. So be sure to go and sign up, get signed up now. And also we're going to have that, what I call that bonus week, where it's a pre-launch, where July 13th, we've got some great things lined up for you there. So get signed up. And in the meantime, I want you guys to remember, you are built by design to win. Okay. So make this decision that you're going to at least start by doing life with power.